So, projecting out, and we talked about in an earlier segment, just what FSU will do with certain records. I do want to talk. If the Mike Norvell tenure doesn't work out at Florida State, which I think he's got, I think anybody would agree, he's got a pretty long road to hoe to get it back to where it needs to be. But
what does that mean? A long road to hoe?
I think I don't know who hoes a road.
You do. Anyway, sorry, derailing it. This is why I'm not. This is why people don't like me hosting OTBs, because I'm supposed to be running point and hoeing the road, and then the brain's also going over the place.
It's a good question though. This is a long field to row to hoe to row.
There you go. That makes more sense.
Row the hoe.
A boat. Okay, PJ Fleck is who they should hire. Is what you were.
If they have to go in a different direction, whether that's this year, next year, is it more likely that they go down to the group of 5 again and try another kind of, not experiment, because there's some guys that you think would be good, whether it's like Summerall at Tulane or whomever, but is it more likely they go group of 5 again? Do they try and go bigger because of the onset of maybe a new conference and because you went group of 5 last time, so you feel like you got to make a bigger splash? Are you going to be more successful with another group of 5 coach, or just letting Mike have a little bit more time to try and figure things out? Just thoughts, big picture, like what direction that they go if they've got to make a change.
So when you presented me with the idea of us talking about future coaching yesterday evening, I did sit down and start making a list, because that's something I haven't really thought about. I'm just kind of living day to day. And I think the main thing in putting the list together is like, man, there's so many variables. Like, these guys who might be good today may not have a good season. Or like, if, Mike Norvell's coaching. And first off, caveat, like, the best case scenario for everyone involved is for them to go ahead and win 9 games this year and be like, oh yeah, last year was kind of aberration. What's the word I'm looking for?
All right, big news. I'll get right back to the video, but my FSU podcast, Double Fries No Slaw, is partnering with T1RX, a supplement and health company, to give away 2 free tickets to the Alabama FSU game on August 30th. Now, no purchase is necessary to win, and all you have to do is enter your name, phone number, and email so that we can reach out to the winner. I've put a link down in the description. It's below as well. www.t1rx.com/pages/FSU Bama Tix, TIX. With it, you'll also get 2 free passes into the Double Fries No Slaw tailgate, where you can eat and drink until your heart is content, all while in the shade during that August Florida heat. Go enter to win today. No purchase necessary, and we will see you out of the tailgate.
Are you? Hopefully, you're not going to cut this as a preview for the show. That'd be disastrous. But yeah, like, I think that'd be the best case scenario. If not, and you have to cut bait with him, I think it's a matter of when. That really kind of helps kind of inform my question a little bit, or my answer to your question, because if it's if it's disastrous and it's 2026 and you're like, oh boy, like, we need to get it steady. Like, you might be okay going with like an older, like, steady hand who's, won at a decent level, at either a good group of 5 school or lower end, like, P4 program, and just trying to navigate the next few years, just to inject some new energy into it. But then, are you better going with Mike Norvell if you're like 6-6? Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I don't know. If you kind of like you just tread water for the next few years, 500-ish, maybe a 7-win season in there, a sub 500 season. It's just like, all right, this is just what it is, and it's not working out. And you're closer to 2030 when there could be a huge shuffle in college football. And I think it's a different answer, man. And I think you then start looking at, like, okay, if we as Florida State have a path that we feel good about to the Big Ten or SEC or whatever it is, does the talent pool open up? And do we bring in someone with either an incredible head coaching resume or one of the most, like, prolific coordinators in the country who's coming from a Power 4 program? Like, Glenn Schumann comes to mind, although you would assume by like 2030 or even like 2028, 2029 that he would have gotten a head coaching opportunity at that point. And if not, weird, why not? But so I think just part of the scenarios depend on the question there. I will say this: don't ever go with the opposite of your ex in a coaching hire. It's kind of a thing. Don't ever go with don't go with an old curmudgeon, defensive minded, Power Four head coach just because you don't feel like it worked out ideally here. Like it's just about fit. It's about finding the right thing, and the opposite of what didn't work out shouldn't be what attracts you to the new coach. It shouldn't be the main thing. So that's my like initial rambly thought about the topic is time will kind of determine of how attractive the job you are, what direction you want to go. And yeah, I got thoughts on different names and stuff too, if you want to get into that, but that's kind of the prelude to it.
Yeah, I'll run through some names and then anybody
Ooh.
I don't mention, you can bring up too, since you made your list. I'm sure the Knowles 247 subscribers have been asking for a hot board. It's certainly at certain times during last year. So, breaking news: Brendan's hot
I'm
board
doing it
coming
here.
soon.
We could do Buyer Sonnone and plug OTB.
Yeah, shout out.
The Turner Group. Oh boy, sorry, college.
Tell Colin he owes me 10 cents for that.
I,
For that shout
I will. I'm sure he'll love that. It's going to get counted
out.
heavily.
Well, you mentioned an older, steady hand. Obviously, this would have a lot to do, and this wasn't on my list, but since you said it, it sparked my mind. If the offense looks good, could that name be Gus Malzahn for a couple of years?
I thought you were going to go Herb Hand because of that.
Oh no, I'm not that punny today. But
Uh,
could it be Gus for a couple of years? Kind of understanding you'd move on and transition out.
so, as someone who just lived the Gus Malzahn as a UCF fan and alum, um, I had thought earlier when I was putting together the list. I mean, I think like of the two coordinators you have, to me, Tony White's more intriguing, younger. I think he's really energetic and bright, uh, and I think he's going to be a head coach somewhere pretty soon. But I don't know what balancing act there would need to be. So this applies to Gus Malzahn too, who's obviously been a head coach and has had some really great seasons and some not so great ones too, but that's head coaching. Um, I don't know what line you have to, what road you have to hoe, what line you have to toe in order, I'm really proud of that, in order to fire your head coach, but then promote from within. That just, you would have to have just such a lopsided performance on one side of the ball and be borderline dominant in one, and then you know last year's offense on the other. I don't see that.
Yeah,
Sonnone,
it
not
would
playing
be
camp.
a weird the path to get there, right? Like in theory, like oh, you want an older coach that's going to be here a couple of years, help stabilize, but then like how do you justify it, right? If they lose games, I guess if they lose a bunch of games 45-52, like that's how you adjust it, but like
That would be it. Yeah,
there'd be a really weird something weird would have happened to get there.
agreed.
Um I mean, I hate to do this. I hate but
Oh,
we're going
I'm
to do
sure.
it. I've moved off of this pretty far, but certainly a name that's going to come up every time there's an opening. Deion Sanders.
This to me is where we talk about the timeline, kind of, and I guess you would have this whole season as a data point. I mean, like, man, if Colorado wins 8 games this season and they did it without Travis Hunter and without Shador, like two NFL draft picks at pretty important positions. I mean, I guess three important positions since Travis played two sides of the ball. Like, if they're able to do this, show there's a level of sustainability to what Deion Sanders done at Colorado. Like, and I think he recruits himself at Florida State to an extent too. Like, I know people are down on the high school recruiting at Colorado, but him in Colorado and him in Tallahassee is like two different things. So I've come off of it too. I think you really want to make sure that it's that he's like for real, like in terms of just like and I think he's already shown to have the level of competency that a lot of people didn't expect. I thought it'd be a dumpster fire, and it hasn't been, to his credit. Now, if he does it without, the players he's had since the beginning of his, college coaching tenure, then I'd be very interested in to be totally transparent. Like I think if he wins 8 games this season, you kind of say, okay, well, why not? Then what are we looking at as other than it being kind of sideshowish, which like, okay, more eyeballs on Florida State University, and that kind of matters more than ever. Interest,
Sure.
television dollars, like that's legitimately baked into the ACC contract right now. Like the downside to me is undercut some by that.
Yeah. So is that a buy or Sonnone?
Bye. Play the game right. Bye.
Yeah. Here's a name that was fun this year. Fran Brown.
Bye. If this is sustainable, he recruits at a really high level. I like their evals as well. There's some stuff like some lower end guys who've gone after. Like, oh, that's a really good player. So I think they've done a good job with high school evaluation. I think they've done a really good job with high school recruiting to date. There's some like volatility to some of the guys you're getting, but you're Syracuse, so like you're going to have to take some big swings. We'll see. They hit, you know, so much of like this all is like, did you get a good quarterback in the transfer portal? Florida State did not last season. Did not get a good quarterback who fit their needs. Uh, Syracuse did. Deion Sanders technically happened to be his son, but 2 years ago he got a quarterback who fit, and they made it work. So like if you get a good quarterback, so we'll see what's long by. Yes, Fran Brown, if they have a good season, I'd be interested in.
Here's one that you mentioned in our last segment about Trey and the trolls, and somebody said that to me when we were talking about the Castellanos comments. They're like, "You're upset about this because you're going to take a few more message board trolls, like if Florida State loses." But here's one that I think would have some people kind of scratching their head thinking, Manny Diaz.
Ooh, yeah, I'm scratching my beard. You know what, man? I'd be interested. And I think you would need a level of backing from a recruiting standpoint to where you'd have to make it work, but we know the defense is solid with him. I think it's reasonable to be like, oh, someone could have learned something from their first head coaching tenure. Like that does happen where people have a better second one. I think the way he's reestablished himself as a coordinator was really good, and I think what he's done as a head coach like this past season, yeah, he has learned like at Duke. So like what he did at Penn State was really good. What he did at Duke was maximizing. I like their evaluation stuff as well. So that's someone who I'd be interested in. Obviously, Duke in Miami and Florida State, like those are two different schools compared to the other. But yeah, I'd be interested in that. I'd buy.
You can buy or Sonnone this. I don't care so much about the game, but my take is that Kenny's never leaving Arizona State. Like, do you agree with that, or do you think he would leave?
The only reason why I don't know how to answer to buy or Sonnone on that one, but I don't think. Oh, you said you didn't care, but
from an FSU perspective, I mean, I would buy that, but but my caveat is that I just don't ever think he would leave.
No one would be asking about Kenny Dillingham at Florida State, and I love Kenny. I think what he's done. He's great for football. It's a great fit there. He's from Arizona. He went to Arizona State. To your points, why you're saying you don't think he would ever leave? Why, if he didn't coach at Florida State for 2 seasons, why he wouldn't even be mentioned as like a viable like candidate for Florida State? Like people wouldn't be interested in him. And man, a lot of my message board wanted him gone when he was here. So I don't know. I think he's in a really good spot for him now. I think it's perfect for what he's doing. He's building something. They're investing heavily in the high school ranks. They're trying to build it the right way in his mind there. I think he's in a good spot. It was a dream job. He's not going to leave that.
Yeah. All right. The only one I had left on my list, and then you can get into yours, is Bob Stoops.
Sonnone.
What you got?
All right. So if you go the group of 5 route, the main one I'm interested in, I hate to do this to you, but I love Jamie Chadwell's offense.
Oh, no, I want to win. It's all right.
Okay.
Sorry,
now, this past season at Liberty was kind of disappointing. I forget. I think we were like,
I know,
but
we lost to Kennesaw State.
Yeah, what was their record? Do you remember what it was?
I mean, their record was 1-9 going into that game. Liberty,
no, not Kennesaw State. What
7-5 or 8-4, I think.
Yeah, so it was underachieving for what the resources they have in there. But we'll see. College football year to year is weird. If they bounce back this year and it's a 10-win team or whatever, I do like the way. I think they have a really good evaluation group there. I think James Chadwell has a really unique offense to where you can kind of moneyball it a little bit and save some money, like at the quarterback position or something if you get an athlete. I like what he's done. Why he hasn't gotten, no offense, a bigger job up to this point. That makes me a little bit leery there because he's older. He's in his 50s. He's not an up and coming coach at this point. But I do like the idea of like what you can do there. The other group of 5 coaches. I wish I like Alex Golish. They're not winning enough to say that's that jump up would be something that they can handle. But I do like what USF has done from a recruiting standpoint. I think they're moving in the right direction with what they've established there. It's a fun offense. There'll be a lot to like there. Alex Golish is really smart, but unless they just have like a monster breakout season, that's the thing where you're looking at 2 years from now, if they go from 7 wins this past season to 9 to then like a breakout year, you may be a little leery of a USF head coaching hire who's running a fast up tempo spread fear offense though too, because
Yeah.
uh, John Summerall from Tulane would be another one, but that would have to be like I like their evaluations, know how to recruit in the Southeast. He was at Troy before, now Tulane. If they can go ahead and revamp the roster after losing their quarterback, and like I think that'll be an interesting name and school to follow. So they're a group of 5 guys. Sitting power 4 head coaches. We mentioned Deion Sanders. Rhett Lashley comes to mind. Now he's in a good situation with SMU, but this is where again, if you're closer to saying, "Oh, you're going to be in the Big Ten," and he might say, "Well, that's where the money is." I think he's done a really good job there. His evaluations with like who they got in the transfer portal, the scheme sound. Yeah, that's a name I like a lot. Uh, Chris Kleiman, I think, is safe with Kansas State. That's not a like he's never been just a badass there, but like they win 9 games pretty consistently. Florida State facilities, Florida State, talent, recruiting pool. That's a name that I think you can kind of say, okay, and again, if they're in the Big 12 and they are not seeing an end to means of like Big 10, SEC money, that might be a name you could pull. Brent Key would be the only other name, and that's the one I would see. Like he's from Georgia Tech. Uh, you would have to try to see if he's able to build on what they've done and keep winning consistently the next year or two. But I do like the identity there. It's again someone you can kind of moneyball it with. And then lastly, yeah, I got two like assistant coaches, kind of message board names, but whatever. Glenn Schumann would be fun, Georgia's defensive coordinator, and then Brian Hartline, the wide receiver coordinator coach at Ohio State. I am intrigued by the idea of like getting someone who's you're not bringing them in to be a great play caller and like giving up those duties and just being an awesome recruiter from hitting the ground running. That might be a little higher in the opposite of your X-ish, but someone who can recruit Florida really well and has a track record of Brian Hartline, I think would be at least worth kind of if you build up the resources around him, would be worth exploring.
Is it feasible at all if this happens in 2 or 3 years, if they're closer to an exit? Is it feasible at all to poach from the SEC or the Big Ten? I mean, Signetti would be really old by then, but could you pull somebody? Could you pull somebody like that?
Like a Lane Kiffin maybe or something.
Yeah,
Like,
or Washington goes on Washington continues to kind of climb there. Like that'll be 3 years into his tenure at that point. Clark Lee, like maybe Vandy continues to make bowl games. I don't know if you keep winning 6 or 7 games at Vandy, like is that something?
It worked out with James Franklin fairly well at Penn State.
Yeah, you mentioned Lane. That's the name that gets tossed around for every job everywhere, but something like that.
And I like what Vanderbilt's doing as well from an eval standpoint. Shout out Barton Simmons. So there's a lot of like programs that I think are doing it the right way in that department in that area, and I think that's really important moving forward. And that's a huge part of like all of this, dude. Is like college football. What's the landscape going to look like in a few years? What's going to be the most important thing? Is it going to be a CEO type of coach? Is it going to be just like a X and O's guy? Like what fit is it going to be? What are your resources? What are the rules that you can operate with? But I do think the idea of having someone who's forward thinking, progressive in that mindset, evaluates high school really well, evaluates transfer portal well, knows how to like attract talent. If everyone does end up if this ends up becoming a thing in a few years from now where it is a hard cap and actually like enforceable and it's like consistently enforced. Right now, we're recording to July. Like I have no idea if it will be or won't be. See, I don't know. I am getting more comfortable with that. But I will. Why do you stare so like stoically during all this?
I'm just listening.
Okay, it's intense. But like all that's going to be an important part of like try to get the right fit and so having someone I go back, I'm rambling there, but I go back to like the idea of like talent acquisition is going to be what matters the most. It's going to be different maybe in the way you can attain it, but being able to evaluate, being able to attract it, like those are the two biggest like lifebloods of college football because you have an opportunity to recruit in theory from an endless talent pool. And so like someone who can do that well is essential. So if you go into the SEC, point being is you're going to have to find someone or Big Ten, yes, I think it's attainable because you're still Florida State. You still have. I will give credit to this administration. I think the football only facility is a really great investment now that the money is starting to dry up. You're going to have this. Is it going to be more important to a player than having twice the? If someone gets offered twice as much, are they going to go to the facility or are they going to go to the money? Yeah, it's going to be different for everyone, but it is a thing that's going to help you. And so if there's a school that's never sniffed the playoff, that there is a glass ceiling, then yeah, I think Florida State could be attractive. And if you are going from the SEC or Big Ten, I think if you're pulling from that level, it has to be someone who has outkicked the coverage from a recruiting standpoint, that has overachieved, that's shown good evaluation skills. And if you say, oh, look at what we have here in fertile, talent-rich Florida, South Georgia, South Alabama, and you look at this facility and you look at the renovated stadium, you look at all this stuff, you can win here at a high level because you'll recruit players that are FSU caliber. I think that's what's important. So yeah, that's a long way of saying yes, you can, but you would have to make sure that's what you'd be getting, someone who can take advantage of that, I guess.
Yeah. Brendan Sonnone of Noles 247 on the bench and maybe making guest appearances on the Roadcast regularly or no. I don't know how often.
I think it's just
Trey for coming back.
Yeah, Trey's going to just do his thing. If he wants me, I'll be there. If not, but I just want to let Trey cook and kind of stay out of the way. I think he's got something pretty cool going on there. So
Trey, much like, a lot of 30-year-old men, definitely you are wanted. I just want to say that. So appreciate you for hanging out and talking about FSU today, Brendan. Thanks, man.
For sure. Thank you.